Wonder about the future and how you'll be working and learning? Welcome to You in 2042, the future of work, with your host, Danielle Wallace.
Hello and welcome to You in 2042, the future of work. Joining me today is Chris Dyer.
I'm a retired CEO, now leadership speaker who helps companies think about their culture, how to make work suck a little bit less, and hopefully plan for the future in a much better way.
That sounds perfect in terms of especially work sucking less and that future planning. Oh, Chris, we've seen so much change happening in the world recent years, and it just feels like it's culminating and ever changing. I'm really curious with your lens and your viewpoint doing all these global keynotes and your past experience as a CEO. What changes do you think might happen to the world of work, given everything that's happening around the globe?
Well, one of the problems about predicting this is that the cycles of change are getting shorter and faster, meaning the amount of change that may happen in a cycle. So a cycle used to be like 60 years or 55 years long, or we might have gone from steam power to electricity, or, these different types of technologies may have gone from iron to steel. Well, in our lifetimes, we've gone into the internet, and from pagers to cell phones to computers and now AI and the Internet of Things. And so that time frame has gotten shorter, right? So there was like 30 years, and then now 25 years, and the next cycle is going to be 20. And so the amount of change that's occurring to a human being in their lifetime is happening. Now we're getting multiple of those cycles in our lifetime versus our grandparents or great-grandparents got one, right? So they went through one big change and had to digest that. And we're going through 2, 3, maybe our kids will go through 4 or 5. And so it's really hard to predict where that actually takes us. And so I'm actually always really interested in trying to help people understand that it's knowing that the change is happening faster and in shorter bits, that we really have to prepare for and be open for that change and be less and less rigid to keeping things how they are, keeping them the same, being nostalgia is going to go away because think about it now, literally you get a new iPhone every year, right? We maybe had a toy we were nostalgic about as a kid. And as an adult, I don't even remember which of my iPhones I liked the best or what color. You're losing all of that because change is happening so quickly. So the good news is anything is possible. The bad news is anything is possible.
I like that reframing of nostalgia is going away because there is such constant change happening. With that lens, then, how do you think this has an effect on the culture then of an organization?
Well, it's potentially going to cause us some real issues because if we don't have a common language, a common belief system, if things are happening so quickly that we lose our rooted sort of humanity and society, it can really disrupt us and cause some problems with geopolitically, economically. There are those sort of factors. But just think about it. Our kids, maybe my grandson who's 4, he asked me the other day if when he's old enough, will I teach him how to drive the car? And of course I said yes, but in my head I thought to myself, he may never have to drive a car. This may be a completely empty promise on my part because that may not even be possible. All of the cars may be driving themselves or we're using, these sort of hovercopter things that they're creating. Everyone's going to be in the air and no longer on the ground. Who knows what he's actually going to be having transport with, right?
And yet we are still tied to our current models and the expectation of this one change within a generation, not the multiple changes you've already alluded to. So it's interesting that it's even hard for us as parents, as grandparents, as employees, as leaders to be able to navigate because we're so accustomed to having just this maybe more having changes as just points in time rather than this continuum. How do you think this has an impact on our workplace?
Well, if anyone remembers trying to teach their grandparent or maybe their parent how to use the cell phone for the first time and how frustrating that was and how many complications and wanting to run your head into the ceiling or into the wall every time you talk to them about it, because it was so hard for them to jump from what they knew to that, right? It was such a gap. How this might impact our workplaces is if you're not able to keep up with the change that's happening and another generation or another group of people are willing to keep up and willing to run at that speed, you may end up being that person who they're terribly frustrated to deal with. And so how does that impact work? Because maybe you're really struggling on how to use this really complicated AI that now we've brought in. At the same time, you have this deep institutional knowledge about how that AI should actually be performing or how it should be interacting with clients. And there's this grand canyon between what you know and what you're able to do and how you're able to perform in the company. That's really big. And so organizations have to really not just double down, but probably triple down on helping their people become educated and have some sort of fluency about this. I remember when I was starting work, it was companies would literally train you on how to use Microsoft Word. They would train you on how to type better. They would train you on how to use the computer. And at some point, they stopped doing that, and it was expected that you knew how to do the things that you were supposed to use and do at work. And right now, employers are still doing that, and I think that this is going to go backwards. They're going to have to turn back into the trainers, and education is going to happen at your workplace on how to use a lot of these technologies and tools because of the change happening so quickly.
With that change cycle, then there's that imperative to ensure the workforce is kept up to date. And hopefully individuals can do that on their own. But to your point, Chris, if not, like we actually, as employers, we actually need a skilled workforce. We actually need to ensure our workforce can adapt to the technology, can use the technology, and can be most productive. So with that, what are some things perhaps that organizations might be doing now to set that seed for those future changes in this future work world?
Companies need to get very clear about what they need to do, what's important, and why they might need to implement some of these newer technologies. Why is this going to be important? So the what and the why are super important. And I see companies getting really bogged down in the how. How do we prompt? How do we do this? How does this technology work? And it's really hard to keep up with. And so if you're really clear about what's important, what do we want to automate? What do we want to use AI for? What will save us money? What will save us time? What will help our employees? And why is that important? And explaining that and making sure we have education and understanding in the organization, then you can go figure out the how. Or bring in somebody else to help you, or buy the technology. Not even have to. I mean, does any of us really understand how most stuff works, anyways? Not really. And yet, I see companies essentially can you imagine you got a piece of software and you're like, well, can you explain to me how the code works? We never asked that. We were Salesforce, it's here. Thank you so much. I get my stuff done. Cool. And yet, we're seeing organizations doing that. And we need to kind of eliminate some of that right now, and focus more on what's important, and then really getting buy-in from our people about why that's important and making sure that they understand and agree so that they'll be willing to do it. I have a friend who said the other day, her husband opened up a program, and all of a sudden this whole AI thing was enabled. And he was like, oh, well, that's cool that we have AI in here now. Nobody told him why. No one told him what they were supposed to do with it. They provided absolutely no training. It was just on. And so there's this huge gap into how do we actually get that workforce to do something meaningful with that?
And therein lies the adoption and such. With that lens then shifting to the employee or an individual, what might individuals then be aware of or what have on their radar so they could be future ready?
Well, the good news is you can take it upon yourself to begin to do this. There's so many free AI courses. There's so much stuff out there that you can begin to use and adapt and understand if you want to take advantage of that. At whatever your skill level and technical level is, there are lots of different places for you to begin to have a better understanding of what's possible so you can be a good resource internally. Again, you don't have to be the expert in the how, but if you can go back and learn enough so that you can answer that question to your boss or answer that question to the other department about why it's important or what is actually possible, it's going to put you in a really valuable position because now you can answer questions, you're involved in the conversation, and you're not going to be put off in the corner with the other dinosaurs who don't want to even talk about ChatGPT or Claude or whatever. And I think so many people just are fearful and they are overwhelmed thinking that they're going to have to be prompt generators or have to learn how to do all this code. And that's actually the opposite of AI, is that you don't need to be doing all that stuff.
And yet having those basic skills allows individuals to be able to keep up with those changes, to be continually part of that rhythm of the change, as opposed to just being swept away with the nostalgia.
Right.
Chris, I love this conversation, and I know most of our listeners would love to learn and hear more from you. Where can people learn more about you?
Well, it's the 15th today, and if TikTok sticks around, I'm on TikTok and do a lot of stuff there. But if that goes away, you can also find me on Instagram, on LinkedIn. I do a lot there, some on Facebook. I'm happy to connect in whatever platform that you hang out on. You can also, my website, chrisdyer.com, has a lot of blog articles and content there. So wherever you feel like digesting my stuff, I'm on one of those channels. You can find me.
Amazing. And that is in the show notes as well. Chris, thank you for this really insightful peek into the future world of work. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being a part of the future. Subscribe now to stay current.